Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Andrea and this is Beyond the Pink Door, and today I am making the Ariana top for my daughter. So I've made the dress and I've made the top already, and I've had a few requests about doing a sew along. So in true StyleArc form, the instructions are very scant to make this. So I'm just going to make the top because basically we're coming to the end of the summer well, for summer that I can see. The weather isn't very good, so I can't see her wearing a dress, but I can see her wearing a top. But I'm ignoring the instructions because I've read them a few times and some of it doesn't even make sense to me. So I'm going to go about it in my own speed. So I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to show you the pattern pieces that I've cut out. So here are all the pattern pieces. So we have a strap piece, we have a bit of interfacing that's just going onto the front there for underneath the buttons. I'm actually going to do snaps again. So we have a front center piece, a side piece, this is the back side piece, and then this is the sheared panel. So it's a fully lined top. You can do the outside piece in one fabric and you can do the inside in a different piece if you like. I've just cut them all out in the one fabric. So this is cut on the fold. There's 4 pieces of this, 4 of this, and 4 of this, 2 of this, and 2 straps. So that's all that's cut out. So the first thing I'm going to do is the shearing for the back panel. So I've already marked all my lines. I don't know if you can see them there. There are little notches on the side of the pattern showing you the beginning of all the lines. So I've drawn those lines across, and then you have your piece on the fold, so it's a matter of shearing right across. Okay, a quick few words about shearing is I have my top thread in, I have my bobbin wound with my shearing elastic. You do that by hand, you don't use your bobbin winder for that. So you just put it on at an even tension, you don't pull it to make it tight. I've it popped into the bobbin casing. I've turned my stitch up to 3. I normally stitch at 2.5. So I'm going to start on my lines. I'm going to start with maybe 2 back stitches and then go to the end, and then I'm actually going to do a back stitch there and I'm going to turn around. So I'm not going to keep cutting elastic on each end. So here we go. And as you sew along, the elastic starts gathering up. Now there is a funny screechy kind of a noise that comes from the machine. There is from mine anyway, so. I've just come to the end there and I've done a back stitch. Raise up my needle, I'm going to turn it around and I'm just going to pull the elastic out a little bit and go on to the next line and do a back stitch again and follow my line to the end. So I'm going to do that on all of my lines. So here we are. Here's our sheared panel. I've no strings or threads hanging out because I turned around at each end. You'll be able to see the link of elastic there, possibly from each side. So now what I'm going to do is, and this worked for the last top I made, I'm going to fold it in half and put the 2 lower raw ends together. And I'm going to sew across, not with elastic, but with just a normal seam. I'm going to pin it together. Just give it a little stretch because you are going with the elastic, and pin it along. It's all 1 centimetre seam allowances with this top as well. just to note. So change your stitch length back to your normal one as well, because don't forget you have it up that little bit higher for the gathering. And then turn it right side out. And now what we're going to do is just edge roll the very bottom seam, and again grab your pins or your clips or whatever and just put your raw edges together as well here. And the same on the other side. So you're just making a double, sheared panel. So I'm going to sew close to the edge on each side. Just stretch out that seam as you're sewing. So you have a really spongy little piece, and what we're going to do now is give that steam with the iron. That looks lovely. Just flatten it out and give it some steam. So you don't touch it with the steam, you just hover over it with the iron, and that just makes it more shriveled, I guess. So I've put the shearing panel to one side, and as I was doing that I heard a little pitter patter coming up the stairs, and Lola has come to join me. So we'll have to see how this sharing a seat is going to go. So sit there nice and quietly now, Lola. So the next thing we're going to do is our straps. So right sides together and sew along, and I'm going to show you how I turn them out. I've done this in a previous video, so if you've seen it, just fast forward. So I have the knitting needle sewer upper, so it's not a pointed needle basically. And I have a double thread in it, and I'm putting a knot in the end of it. And I'm going to poke that through the seam allowance. And then I'm going to thread the needle back through the double thread. And I'm going to feed that all the way to the end of the tunnel, or the channel. And then on this end where you've actually put the needle through, just hold it and pull the thread until it starts going right side out. Just be careful. And then it starts. I have a dog nose under my arm now looking for love. So here it comes out at the other end. That works for me every time. So just cut off that thread there, and I have the other one done already, and I'm going to bring that to the ironing board and give it an iron, and then come back to the next bit. Oh, while I'm going to the ironing board, I'm going to put the interfacing on the inside of the two front center pieces as well. So I have my straps turned out. I have my interfacing just ironed there along the button edge. So this is the center front, this is the side front, and here's the side back. So basically this gets sewn to this, and this gets sewn to this. So I leave this pattern piece on here because I want to make sure that I sew this to this rather than it getting mixed up and I sew this to this side. So I'm just going to do those 3 seams, and you do them on the outside panels and the inside lining pieces. So I'm going to sew my 2 front pieces together. So my side panel, my center panel. They're actually a very short seam, so just find your notches, pin together and sew with your 1 centimeter seam allowance. And then on the other side. The little tapping noise is my little friend's tail going because she's so happy that she's sitting beside me. Aren't you? That little face. Right, so at this point we've got 2 outside pieces, and we know them because we have our interfacing on them, and I have pressed all my seams open. So we're going to work on 1 piece at a time. We also have our straps, and on the front piece we're going to pin our straps into position according to the notches. So I know 1 here, 1 goes here over the center seam or the bust seam, and then I'm going to pin it here at the back. Now I know that these straps fit perfectly on my daughter because I've made 1 already, but it would probably be a good idea now to maybe try it on and check to see how the strap lengths go. And then we get 1 piece of our lining and we pop it on top, and I'm going to pin from the bottom edge. Now what I did the last time was I sewed from this seam around, and then I went on with the next part. So I'm going to pin this all around. Matching up my seams. And I'm going to sew then from here, pivot here, up along the button edge, pivot here, and sew right around to here. I'm going to do that on both sides. Okay, so I've sewn all around, and now I'm going to trim the corners. And I'm going to clip all of this seam because there's a little curve in it, and it'll just make ironing it and turning it a bit neater. So I'm clipping about maybe an inch apart, just being careful not to go near the stitching. Okay, now that's done. Now we get on with adding our shearing panel. So where we sewed the two seams together, I'm going to consider that as the bottom part of the shearing, and the fold is the top. So what we're going to do is slot this in to this seam. So they call this sandwich on the StyleArc pattern instructions. So I'm going to sandwich it in, just taking care to get them to line up at the top as best I can. Now we are fighting a little bit with the elastic when we're doing this, so we want to just pull this out a little bit. So I'm stretching and I'm pinning. I'm going to pop another few pins in along here, and I'm going to stitch up along here. So I've it all pinned in place, and now I'm going to sew from the bottom up to the top. Now we're going to turn it right side out. I'm hoping that I've got the panel as close to the top stitching line as I can, but it is a little bit of a fight. Okay, the moment of truth. Now I'm going to I just put my thumbs into the corner here at the top, and I push out my point. And the same here at the bottom. Just going to push it out loosely for now. Now it's lined up not too bad. So that's where the shearing joins. So it's not perfect, but it's not an easy thing to do. I use a skewer, so it's quite blunt on the edge, or actually it's a chopstick, it's not a skewer, just to push the corners out. And now I'm going to just iron around and see how it'll look. So now you can see what it's like joined to one side, and the next thing to do is to sandwich it between the other side as well. So this is how we do that. Pop it in again in the same way. So just give it a pull to get it down to that end. It's almost a three-handed job, really. And I'm going to do the very same thing. I'm going to pop a few more pins in it, sew down, do my turning out, ironing, and then I'll be back. So here we are. So we still have this raw edge down here, and what I've done is I've just ironed up on one side here, and I'm going to slip stitch that together when I'm finished. And that's all I did, was turned it in and ironed it. Simple as that. So I'm ready now to put the snap fasteners onto the front. And what I have done is I have my marks. You can see my dots. I hope it's actually got really sunny since I started this, so you can see my dots here that I've actually done with a marker. And how I did that was I used the front piece to find the position of them, and I just marked them with a pen. And I used a normal pen because I always find that my fabric, I can't see my fabric marker that well, and the pen is going to be covered by the snap fasteners anyway. So I'm going to pin my two pieces, one on top of the other. And I'm doing this so that I can poke a little hole through for both sides of the fastener. And I'm going to use this guy to do that. So this is an awl, I believe. And I'm basically going to just poke it through each of them. So I'm going through the two layers of the front. So then I know they're going to line up. Okay, so that's the two sides prepared. And I have these snap fasteners. So these are little lilac ones, which I think match up really nicely. And in the packet, they have 3 different components. So each size uses one of these with a little point, and then we have the little receiver, and then we have the snap part. So each side needs one of these, and then this clips on top of it. And I use this tool that I bought. I bought a full kit, including this and these in loads of different colours, and I just bought it on eBay a while ago. So I will put a link to that kit in the description box. I want to have the receiver underneath. Obviously I'm going right over left. So this guy goes underneath, and the little receiver goes on top. And then you use your pliers just to give it a squeeze. And that's it. So both sides of the snaps are on, and now it's the snap test. So test them out. If they don't snap as well as you think they should, then it just means that one side needs more of a squeeze with the little pliers. and then just be gentle on the first few times of using them. And that's it. So here she is, the finished Ariana top, complete with snap fasteners. I love the shearing effect on the back. You could make your straps double the size if you wanted to cover a bra strap. And I think you can see from this as well that you could easily make this top reversible. So the only thing you'd have to do is cut your back panel piece in half on 2 different fabrics and then join at the top and the bottom. And obviously if you cut the panel in half, you'd have to leave a little seam allowance as well. So you could essentially make this totally reversible. You would have to add a coordinating strap, of course, for the two, and particularly you can do that because you have the snap fasteners and they look identical front and back. So yeah, a great little stash buster. Would take very little fabric out of maybe 2 leftover scraps. And yeah, I think that's it. I filmed this over 2 different days because my little dog needed attention the last day. So I hope I have included everything. I'm soon going to find that out when I do the editing. Any questions, anything that I might have left out, just pop it into the comments and I'll answer. And I hope this helps you make an Ariana top as well. And yeah, that's it for now. So thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video.